we are on to the section 10, which is the last section of this design document guideline series. The section 10 is appendix. Um, it is basically a section to cover anything which has not been covered so far in the design document. So that one section where you can add anything that you think is relevant and should be captured in this document. Uh, what you can do is right, like see, glossary is one thing which you'll often see in the appendix, which has all the acronyms, the key terms, the full forms of certain things, right? Like you might be using a lot of short forms, maybe things like, let's say in compliance, there is GDPR. So what is GDPR, right? Not just the full form, but you can also give links for some documentation around it. So any such thing, right? There might be a lot of junior developers, data engineers who might not be aware of these terms, right? So ensure that whatever short forms that you are using, do mention details of these. You might find it, right? It's a very very simple thing or a common thing, but there might be a lot of junior folks who might not be aware of these things. So it is important for them to add these things. Even simple terms like what is HA, what is DR, right? All these things should go here. But along with that, what you can also add is all the previous work which was done. If there was any previous POCs were done, so you can add the details or the findings from those POCs, links to that, documents related to that, any other observations, right? So initially, in the design consideration section, I think we discussed this, but the this would be, this section would be a good placeholder to capture these things so that whoever wants to refer that, they can go through these documents. Um, you can also have a issue list, right? A open issue list or a running issue list as part of this. It can be another document also. If you are already, I think most of you would be having another live document around issue list, so you can give a link to that as well. If not, you can add it here as well, but do maintain it, do open and close the issues, add the relevant details. So while this was all about appendix, right? There is still few other sections which I thought we should cover here, which we have not added as such. But yeah, let's quickly cover these as well. Deployment strategy. I think it is one important section which I have missed in this design documentation guidelines. Especially if you're using automated deployments, right? If you're using CI/CD pipelines and all, then this section becomes very important. That you should have a clear-cut strategy how you want the development team to use that, right? Deployment strategy and as well as the code repository structure. I think both of these go hand in hand. So if you are into the AWS world, right? Are you using the AWS code commit, or you want to use something like GitHub for code repository? Then how do you want to integrate these things? If you are into Azure, do you want to use Azure repos or anything else, right? So how that overall deployment of the code, or okay, let me take a step back. How the overall code storage is going to happen, how you are going to maintain the versions, who is going to approve it, how the approval and merge things are going to happen. Then once this is done, how are you going to deploy it, whether you are planning to use things like which is native to the cloud, like cloud formation in AWS, or you want to use something like Terraform, right? Then how the is there a plan to do a continuous integration? Is there a plan to do continuous testing? See, all these things may not be relevant at the start of the project itself, right? Like when you're writing a design document, these are all things which you will have to think about, but you cannot really finalize all of these in the first go itself. It may take some time for these things to mature. So at least the basic things, right? Like having a proper code repository, having a proper structure, having the proper version control mechanism, right? Those things you can start adding. And then once the dev team start implementing these things, then you can come back and add few more details here. um, Similarly, you can also have a section for administration guidelines or the infra related stuff, right? So sometimes you might have to give details around the sizing of the cluster, right? Let's say if you are using things like Databricks or EMR or even Snowflake, right? What is the cluster sizing? How you want to plan the concurrency related stuff? How many clusters you need to have, how many nodes you need to have, if it is Spark, right? How many worker nodes you need. So all those details, right, can go here. Again, it may not be possible to come up with those numbers at the start of the project, but it will help you to have those placeholders, so that once you get started with the project and you get to know a lot of more things about the data volumes, the nature of the data, the frequency of the data, you can come back and all add those details here, right? And also you can give the rationale, like why you want to use that cluster sizing, or you want to start small and see how things work. You can also add things, right? The important things, like um how the tagging and all should work, right? Tagging is an important thing within cloud ecosystem, right? So what should be the tagging mechanism, right? What tags should be used, because then it ties back to the chargeback mechanism and all other things, right? So what should be the nomenclature, what should be the standards for that? So all those things can come into this section also. So yeah, I think appendix and all these other sections, right? I think this is the last part which I wanted to cover. Any other section that you think is relevant, because as I said, right, it is different from use case to use case. If you think any other section should go, you feel free to add it here, right? You should be customizing these, and this is just a overall high level guidelines. But yeah, in no means that these are the only sections that you should have. You can keep on adding as much details as you want, but just ensure that, right, everything that is important and that is going to help the data engineers should be added in this design document.